Hi, welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. This is Victor. Victor, what kind of stuff you got for us today?
Well, today I wanted to talk about starting with the origins of this channel, but ultimately, why did we choose the name Withdraw Consent? So, Jack and I had lots of conversations as our views have morphed over the years. And
Over the recent years.
yeah, very recent years, just the last 3 or 4 years, especially personally. Um, we we had a conversation where we're frustrated because we couldn't find any content online that matches where we were at in our beliefs. And ultimately, that is, if you're trying to be a man and take care of business, there's not a voice in your head that says, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you make the content?
Can I say why there's not that content?
Go for it.
Because the problem is if you go a little bit past the content that those content creators already have, there's going to be a huge drop off. If they say something bad about Trump, say, is Trump the solution? We got a video. Sorry, there's going to be a huge drop off. If you make a Back the Blue video, we've got one of those. There's going to be a huge drop off. And so they're ideologically
Totally.
maybe in the same boat as us, but they're on the grift.
Right.
You know people aren't on the grift when they're willing to just take the drop off. Just say, nobody's going to listen to me because my own base is, but you got to look at the things we're talking about. You have to. Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. So we had, after we decided that, let's try to make content, the next question was, well, what area are we going to talk about? And ultimately, we decided that our ideology is the most important thing. We'd rather talk to 10 people who are on the same page with us than grift off of 10,000 people or whatever that we could get up to by saying the same things that everyone else is saying.
And not make a difference.
Right. Ultimately, we're doing this not because it's fun or anything. It's because we want to see change. And we're trying to inform people and ultimately start a movement of withdrawing consent from your government. And this just isn't the United States government. This is applicable to a lot of Western governments at this point. We rarely talk about those, but I'm assuming if you look into what's going on in your specific country, you're going to find a lot of the same stuff because everything seems to be run the same way.
Unless you live in Hungary.
That's true. Yeah, he's definitely gone off the rails compared to everyone else in the EU.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that we wanted to address was the right and the left. And everyone's is always so focused on that's the bad guy relative to your beliefs. And while all those views that each side has are important to them, there's a greater issue going on here. And that is the focus of this channel, is trying to realign everyone's view on both sides to what are causing the conflicts. Where are the hardships from real life coming from? Kind of who are the bad guys? And you want to break down for us just real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, if you're watching some political content, and if they're not talking about the uniparty, then just leave
Right.
it. But here's what I see. They'll talk about the uniparty, and then they'll go on to immediately say, and that's why we got to vote for Republicans this time, because what you set forth a premise, and then you just immediately went to a duality. There is no duality. They're grifting. Because they know they could say the same thing and say, but you got to vote Democrat. Depending on what side you're on, what show you're watching, could be Kyle Kalinske, could be somebody on the right over here. Depending on what show you're watching, they're grifting because if they don't say uniparty, ditch them. If they do say uniparty, but then they say, but support this side. See, the thing is, you could support your side, either side you want, and we could say, hey, let's try to stop declining as fast, or just join a movement and fix the whole thing. Because it's like, I have to vote Republican because I've got to keep these conservative values in line for a couple more years before it all disintegrates. And why waste the effort? Why not just say, no, sorry.
Right.
Anyway, it's just a tangent, but.
Okay. So a kind of a caveat to that is, like we were talking about earlier, Epstein is not the bad guy. The people who were partaking in Epstein's island were not the bad guy.
They all are bad guys, but not the bad guys.
They're part of the system, but at the top of it, it's the people who were put Epstein in play to gather blackmail on those people at the island to consolidate their power and to force their influence on the people who run things.
Because Epstein is doing this operation because he's being made to do it.
Right. And
The people down there are in it because they're a bunch of weirdos,
Right.
But now they're not in control of what they do. So you look like Bill Clinton. From a certain point on, Bill Clinton was not in control of what he did. So he did some good things and he did some terrible things,
Right.
But
you have to question his motivations because
we know there's nefarious people behind him who are willing to do that operation. Just imagine the moral compass on these people.
Right.
And then...
Yeah, totally. So just keep that in mind of who the bad guys are. It's multiple levels up. It's the people that are behind all the stuff that goes on. And that's really when we say withdraw consent, we're withdrawing from that system. We don't condone it. We don't want to be a part of it. And we want to try to convince other people to not be a part of it as well. And so what does that mean if you withdraw consent to the system? How do you change your life to withdraw consent?
Easy question.
Okay.
Here's what you do. You don't just passively stand by and consent. You have to be doing something. So I want to make the argument that if you are not doing anything yourself, if you're not doing anything, then you're with the system. Because passively standing by while somebody does something terrible,
you're an accomplice.
You're an accomplice, yeah. And in a country that claims to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, do you know who the United States government is? It's you. Sorry, you can't. Like, we were having this conversation a little bit unrelated to this, but we were talking about how people in the Oklahoma City bombing, like what level of people in there were bad guys, And we were talking about it. And then I realized, well, it's a silly conversation, but it was hypothetical. And I realized, wait a second, when a terrorist is looking for, like, not a homegrown terrorist, I'm talking about a foreign terrorist. A terrorist is looking for like a target and like, should I hit a military? We're all culpable in this. All American beings are culpable. If you're going to work every day at the World Trade Center, you are this person who is acquiescing to bombing their compatriots in a foreign country because you're standing by passively and not doing anything. Now, if you're out there doing something that's different, you're not as culpable. You're still part of the... So what I'm saying here is that when we came to the position where we are going to withdraw consent, we started the show. We are doing something that actively work to mold people's minds away from the system. You could join us. You could join our movement. You could contribute. You could find a different movement that does the same thing. I don't really care. Just do something. For goodness sakes, do something.
Start your own show. Whatever.
Just whatever it is. I'll come support you if you're doing it better,
Totally, yeah.
But you have to do something or else you acquiesce to it. I'm going to tell a quick story.
Okay.
Some years ago, quite a long time ago, I found out that the government did some terrible things.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not going to tell you the category. There's a series of categories. Everything they do is terrible. And I was furious. I was furious that they had done this to my country, And you know who I got mad at?
No.
My father.
Wow.
Because this happened in the 60s. Why didn't you do something?
Okay.
Why didn't you do something? You raising this kid and you're just going to put me in this world where it's all messed up in this manner and in all a bunch of other manners. And I got angry at him. And that was the thing. I didn't tell him or nothing, and I wasn't hiding his shoe. I wasn't being passive aggressive. I just didn't bring it up. So, and then a little while after that, I stopped being angry at him because I said, what could he do? He couldn't do anything. Okay. And that's just completely cowardly talk. It's the black pill. It's, oh, poor me. You can't do nothing. So my point is, you can do something. We are doing something right now. But I just urge you to do something. If not, look, I got kids, Are my kids going to grow up and be angry at me because I didn't do anything? Because I never even tried once. It was too inconvenient. This is inconvenient.
Yeah,
I got lots of stuff to do right now, but this is inconvenient, but it's worth it. And so, even if you don't have kids, do it for my kids. I'm doing it for your kids. I'm doing it for your future kids. If you don't even have kids yet, but you might, I'm doing it for your brother's kids. Do something. And it's not that I care about them being angry, but I want them to live in this beautiful world. I want it can be so much better. And we can get there by withdrawing consent.
Right. I kind of feel like this is relevant. We'll see here. I'll throw this out there. So something I do in my head is, as I've been going down this path of learning stuff, I've tried to figure out where we are in like an apocalyptic movie. So you've got, the movie starts out, everything's fine. The bad guys, come to power, take over, things get bad, and eventually the good guys rise up and that type of thing. So I'm always, coming into this, like learning about this, I always figured we were on the precipice of the bad guys taking over. We actually lost the fight generations ago, before we were born. I mean, you go back
over 100 years.
Yeah.
If you think JFK, if you think that's where we lost it,
right.
Boy,
we got some stuff coming for you at some point.
Yeah.
So understanding where you are in the overall, like, current history kind of this movie that we're in, it's time to stand up to the bad guys. If we want the movie to have a happy ending, we have to realize where we're at and withdraw from it and start getting more people to withdraw. And
if you don't stand up and do something now, because the bad guys are already in control in this movie we're talking about, if you don't stand up and do something now, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse until either there's no happy ending, or your kids and grandkids have to live in a terrible thing, and then they have to do the struggle from a much worse footing.
Right. The position only gets worse.
Right. It's just time to do something. I'm sorry. It's just...
See, we're still, sort of lucky in that they still try to pretend that they're not in control and that they haven't had control for a long time. And ultimately, the best way to keep people from standing up to the government is just to convince them that they're free. It isn't about, don't force them to not stand up. Just convince them that they have all these freedoms and they're going to be pacified, and that's where we are right now.
Right.
And the whole goal of this is to just have this movement of people who are saying no to this. And eventually things just happen when there's enough people. And
you could say, hey, you're talking in vague terms. What does withdrawing actually mean? Okay, well, let me give you an example, okay? I'm against the 16th Amendment.
Okay.
Right? Federal income tax. The reason why we got federal income tax was because the conservatives always said no. And then what happened is the conservatives wanted prohibition, so they gave it on federal income tax. Only the top 6% will be taxed at all of income earners. And then, of course, prohibition is gone and we're stuck with income tax. Why don't we have politicians running on, I'll abolish the 16th Amendment? How could you not be the most popular candidate in the history of America? Like, you're running independent. I'm not going with the parties. And of course, the president can't abolish it. It's going to take 2/3 of the governors and this and that. But then the president's going to get up there and says, hey, y'all get on board. This is what we're doing. And then just start getting rid of all the governors who won't go on board with it. We don't even have one candidate who talks like that.
Right.
See, if we raise our standards to things like this, and I'm still not saying that voting in elections is the thing, because nobody has any faith in the elections anyways. But what I'm saying is that there's movements we can make. Like, there's not even a movement to, would it be the most popular thing in the history of this country to abolish the 16th Amendment?
Everyone that has a job would be on board, it seems like.
Yeah. There's so many things we can do. And nobody's even suggesting the actual things that we could do.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I hate the argument. So how would the government fund the military? I don't care. I don't care. If I was supreme leader, I would ditch the 16th Amendment and just deal with it.
Yeah.
So I can't blow up as many people. Dang. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Do we need 33,000 people working at the FBI?
Yeah. Or the new hires at the IRS? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So in conclusion, evaluate your life. Think about the things that are going on, even just like the 16th Amendment and whatever taxes and just anything like that. Is it worth standing up for? Is it worth trying to make this world a better place for your kids, for your grandkids, or even just for yourselves? And just think about, is there something that you can do? Should you be doing something?
Thanks for watching. I would just say, be brave, do something, join us or join someone else. Thanks for watching.